Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The Technology Modernization Fund is running out of time. In 8 days, the reauthorization will expire for the 8-year-old government account that helps agencies update IT systems. That is, unless Congress acts to extend the TMF. For more on what it would mean if the TMF would expire, Federal News Network's executive editor, Jason Miller, joins me now. Jason, good to have you.
Always a pleasure.
Let's start at the beginning. Some folks are familiar with the TMF, but others might not be. Back us up on what it is and why it's expiring.
The Technology Modernization Fund is one of two really big pieces of a bill that was passed and signed into law in 2017 called the Modernizing Government Technology Act, the MGT Act. The TMF was created to really have a centralized government-wide IT modernization fund. Exactly what it says. Hey, I'm an agency. I have this big, ugly problem that I need solved. I need some extra money to really accelerate it. And that can submit a proposal to a board of federal executives, the federal CIO, the federal CISO, other people from GSA, other agencies, CISA as an example. And I can get money and get extra funding to really push forward this project that maybe has been slow to move or has some cybersecurity holes that really need to be fixed. And it's been fairly successful over the last 8+ years. The TMF currently manages about $1 billion worth of systems upgrades and modernization projects, 69 total investments across 34 different agencies. And on top of that, there's a lot of interest in using it. The TMF board has received about 290 proposals worth about $4.5 billion in total funding. The TMF is set to expire because in the MGT Act back in 2017, 2018, when it became law, it said, this will expire in so many years. And that so many years is unfortunately December 12th of this month. So the time is ticking.
One of the big challenges of TMF was the payback provision. Agencies were supposed to pay back their loan with the savings or the revenue that they generated from these investments. How is that going?
That has been a albatross around the TMF's neck for a lot of years. And there's been attempts by the Office of Management and Budget to change that model. At one point, when they received over $1 billion from the American Rescue Act, they relieved some of that burden of the payback model, saying, hey, for certain things, maybe it's a 25% payback or 50% payback. Congress was not happy about that. They have brought that back to, hey, you should be expected to pay back 100% of your investment, of your loan, except for some circumstances which you need to negotiate with the board. And now, this administration also is saying, hey, maybe we need a totally different model that includes the payback model, but also, if you will, a pass-the-hat type model where they can collect otherwise expired funds from agencies to put in the TMF to use as loans, as investments across the government. That model is awaiting, again, legislative approval from Congress.
What would happen if the program does lose its authorization?
There's two things. The first, the current funded projects would remain. If there's money already allocated, they would still get their money. So the TMF board gives money out in tranches. If you get a $15 million award, you just don't get $15 million. You may get $3 million this year and $6 million another year, as you've shown progress, as you've shown improvements, as you've shown really modernization steps that you've taken and successful ones. The big problem is new investments would stop. The TMF board would no longer be able to make new investments in new projects. And as I said earlier, Terry, there's dozens and dozens, hundreds of projects waiting in the wings, proposals. And in fact, the board only made one new investment in all of calendar year 2025. So obviously, there's a lot of money that also could be frozen. According to GSA's budget justification, GSA runs the TMF Program Management Office. There's upwards of $150 million in the TMF fund. Now, some of that is for existing projects, but some of that is for new projects too. So a lot of that would be on hold. And if they don't use it, the chances of potentially going back to the Treasury is if it's not renewed is also in part of that discussion.
You mentioned that the administration and Congress are thinking about some other models for technology investment. Are they interested in extending the TMF as is? What are you hearing there?
There's a lot of interest among some members of Congress, and I think the administration as well, to extend the TMF. I know that, for instance, Congresswoman Nancy Mace and former Congressman Jerry Connolly introduced the Modernizing Government Technology Reform Act back in April that included an extension of the TMF through December 31st, 2031. Unfortunately, that bill never got out of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and there's no Senate companion. I also know that Nancy Mace tried to put a provision in the Defense Authorization Bill for 2026 that would also extend the TMF through 2031. That was not picked up during the big amendments process. I did hear from a spokesperson for the Oversight and Reform Committee, and they are going to try once again during the conference committee to put an extension in the NDAA for the TMF. They are hopeful that there's a lot of support for it. I know in the Senate, there is some support. Gary Peters, the ranking member of the Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee, is supportive. However, there are some other concerns. Senator Rand Paul, the chairman of the committee, is not such a big fan of something like the TMF. So it's unclear whether or not this will work or not. As for the administration, I did get a comment from the General Services Administration. They obviously want to work with Congress to make this happen. The Office of Management and Budget, unfortunately, did not respond to repeated requests for comment about where the federal CIO, Greg Barbaccia, and others stand in terms of trying to get this expiration extended.
What does industry say about this, or do other segments support the TMF as a way to move forward on some of these big projects?
The TMF has always been really interesting. There's always a lot of excitement in industry about it. And I don't think a lot of folks in industry initially understood what it was and how it worked, right? Because it was supposed to be for projects that were already ongoing, not new contracts. But I think over time, industry and others have seen the value of the TMF. I know there was a letter written by the Alliance for Digital Innovation, ADI, to the leadership of Congress, advocating for the extension of the TMF. So that also is a big push. So I think there's a lot of support from industry. I also talked to some former government folks. Gundeep Ahluwalia is the former Labor Department Chief Information Officer. During his time at Labor, he helped Labor win 6 different funding investments from the TMF for different projects for Labor Department. And he said, listen, the TMF really helped the Labor Department pay down its technical debt. It was all about improving services, improving cybersecurity. That money just isn't there otherwise. The funding model to improve federal IT investments is hard to come by. So much money is tied up in operations and maintenance that finding that extra bit of funding to really accelerate a program is difficult many times. At the same time, I also talked to Larry Bufundo, the former executive director of the TMF Program Management Office. And Larry also said, listen, there are ways that agencies can find modernization money, but again, it's few and far between. And unfortunately, there's not enough government-wide plans to say, okay, how are we going to address this issue? How are we going to do this as a group? And the TMF provided that really focus from not just this one agency, but what the idea was, hey, if one agency has a problem with a system, they can then use that experience to help other agencies modernize systems, move toward a shared services model. So there's a lot of benefits of having this kind of centralized fund.
Lots to watch over the next few weeks for this important program. That's Federal News Network's executive editor, Jason Miller. Jason, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure.
You can find this story at federalnewsnetwork.com.